more and more, I'm almost seeing imposter syndrome as a healthy sign. It's like alert, alert. But what if that means like growth, growth?
Today I have the privilege of interviewing Kody and McCormick, who are film directors that have produced a wide variety of content for clients like McLaren, Southwest Airlines, Camping World, and the Discovery Channel.
Creating a hit list, who are the dream brands you want to work with? Some are going to be ridiculous.
I ask people all the time, like, who do you look up to? And most people, they kind of scratch their head.
I've known them for a long time, and one of the things I have always loved about them is their desire not only to produce excellent films, but also building relationships and understanding what's really needed behind the scenes to get paid for the work you love.
It's on you to connect the dots, understand that as you start to reach out again, you have to bring something different.
Is there a way to hypothetically resurrect
Great.
a dead horse?
Wonderful. The question I wanted to start with was, I think a lot of artists behind the scenes, they may not say this out loud, but there's this kind of mentality of skill alone is what gets me big clients.
Yeah.
What's been your experience there?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a fine line because there's that quote. I think it's something like it's called best-selling author.
Yeah.
Not best writing author.
That's great.
So
I
it's
love
best-selling author, not best writing author. Whether you like it or not, in 2025, you are a brand.
Yeah.
And so I think if you're not looking at the sales side of things, you're gonna miss out and you're gonna be really disappointed.
Give me a story of like when you think of a project where you were like jumping tiers, taking on something bigger, taking on something better, and what was necessary to make that jump, kind of hit that bigger project?
One that comes to mind for me is, and this is in like a passion zone. So like auto sports, cars, that's something that I love. And it was always a dream to like get in with a brand that, was fun and makes cool cars.
Sure.
And for us, that was McLaren.
I love it.
So McLaren, we've done a handful of projects with them on their automotive side. Some have been collaborating like with their racing side, which has been pretty cool. But McLaren, again, like growing up, this is like, man, there's no way I could work with a client like that. And I think it probably was about a year and a half of building relationship before we got that first project to actually work on. And I think something to note is a lot of times when you're looking at either a client you want to work with or on a specific project, when you have that idea, if you go approach them, right? And we can talk about ways to like actually approach clients, but if you actually go approach them, it's probably guaranteed to not be the right time that they want what you have to offer.
Sure.
You have to acknowledge that. So if it's not the right time when you want it, you have to be willing to stick with it for the period of time until the right moment is there. A principle to leave is you have to have many irons in the fire.
Yeah.
So like you create, the list of people that you want to collaborate with or companies you want to collaborate with, put the irons in the fire, and then they have to be in there a while.
Sure.
So that you get one to come through, but you still got 10 in the fire for like next year and the year after.
Right. Let's say you're proactively juggling 3 or 5 or 10 over the course of years, and you're staying in touch with these people. And when you first reach out, the time wasn't right or they didn't have the need, but stay proactive. You continue showing up and saying, hey, we're working with these guys, or look what we did for this brand. Well, you'd be surprised that somebody might reach out 3 years later and say the time is right. And then everybody on the outside says, oh my gosh, how did you do that?
Yeah.
Right? Another story comes to mind if you want to hear another
Let's do it,
idea of kind of this maybe long hustle behind landing a client. One collaborator that's been amazing has been Canon. And again, now we've been really fortunate to get to collaborate with them on more and more projects. And people are like, wow, again, did you have the magic wand? How did you do that? But there was probably a decade, close to a decade of building that relationship, building trust, credibility, relationship.
Yeah.
In the early years, and this is a trade show I know you'll be familiar with, in the film industry, NAB in Las Vegas, where all the bells and whistles are revealed.
Love it. Great announcements.
It's so exciting. But probably 2014, 2015, I was still in high school. You were college age, and we were showing up to this trade show. We would introduce ourselves to some of these people, and we would stay persistent, and little opportunities would come up over the years. We had to be persistent. I'm going to be honest. Like, they didn't just call us up and say, let's work together. I remember the first project that we collaborated with, they didn't pay us anything, right? They loaned us some gear.
Sure.
And we used that, and we created some content for them. And they're like, all right, well, that was pretty great. And then a few years went by, and they said, hey, we're doing these educational classes in Costa Mesa, which is one of their, teaching centers. And we taught like a high school course. And I think we got paid maybe a little bit, but it wasn't like this big deal. But as many years went by, there was that trust of, okay, these guys spoke at one of our campuses and kind of understand their brand. And so now, in recent years, we've been collaborating with them more and more. But that was, probably close to a decade of building that trust.
Sometimes I think people are concerned that they approach, they offer, it's a no, and they don't want to be annoying.
Yeah.
Right? So how have you guys found that balance of staying in touch, building trust, maintaining the relationship without feeling like you're nagging at them?
It can be there, and we have been there.
Sure.
Like we've been pesty and annoying to contacts. But we also learn through that, right? And it's years of learning that of like, okay, wow, you look at it back at an email like 10 years ago, I'm like, why did you send that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm thankful I did, because now I'm here and now I learn from that. Like way too much information, they don't care, But what I will say is it's on you to connect the dots.
Yep.
So what you need to do is continually study who you're pitching. You have to understand where they're at in the year, what their objectives are. I mean, there's so much information now online. Like when you learn about a brand, that they're putting out press releases, you're seeing the new products release, you're seeing the content they're putting out. So you get to naturally like digest that and go, how do I then, fill the void or bring something that they don't have? Understand that as you start to reach out again, you have to bring something different. Right. So if you come to someone with an idea or just like, hey, we'd love to meet, we think we should work together, maybe it falls flat and they don't get back. Maybe you can follow up another time in this similar way, but it might just be falling on deaf ears. So another thing that we love to do is create an offer that they can't resist.
Cool.
That's straight up like the Godfather.
Yeah, that does feel like mafia, right? An offer they can't refuse.
Make an offer they can't refuse.
That's great.
No, so exactly. We didn't make this up. It was inspired by professionals in the past. But make an offer they can't refuse.
Yeah.
Great.
If you can come up with something that they can't say no to, whether it's like the exact timing, you're offering something no one else has out there, that's connecting the dots. And I think that's creating something that will get your foot in the door. And I think it's a slow process. Like you're looking for some interest.
Right.
No response, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
A response with, like, hey, maybe thanks for your offer. Like we'll consider you. Sure. That's still a no. But you've talked with them. If you can get coffee, try and break through the ice, basically.
Well, and I think there's an art there. It's like that could be a statement or that could be a lifetime of studying what that means. We can't take things personally because you have to put yourself in the shoes of the person you're trying to pitch. Because if you're anything like me, you're getting emails every day from these AI sales emails that like they generically find your name and maybe like your job title on LinkedIn. Hi, Barrett Kaufman. And you're like, enough, you're getting dozens of these that you need to understand that's what you're competing with. They don't even register. So it's on you to figure out how can you stand out. Could it be a catchy subject in your email? I spent a month making this for you. Oh, okay. Well, hopefully that's true. Right? Maybe you didn't. I don't know what you spent a month. I don't know what you spent a month doing. It's been a while since we caught up, but and that idea of the offer they can't refuse. How can you, whether you have leverage or not, how can you create leverage? Leverage comes by bringing value, not by receiving it. So if it's somebody you really look up to, maybe this person has the dream job that you want. They're working on movies. They're creating whatever. They have a business that's successful. How can you bring value? Hey, could I buy you coffee? I will come to you wherever you are. Maybe you're in a different state. You could see that as a disadvantage. Or if you're the guy who lives in a different state who says, I value who you are and what you do so much that I'm willing to drive out a 7-hour drive, buy you dinner. I've written questions. I would like a half hour of your time, sir. What do you say? Give them somebody to root for. Get creative. Create that. You have to create value. You have to get in a mindset of how do you give value to somebody who otherwise you're just taking their time.
Yeah, that's good. The word leverage is interesting. Do you have, like, when you think of that, is that simply providing value, or do you think of that, is that like how would you kind of define that word leverage?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, leverage is I think it coincides with credibility.
Cool.
So, or it's probably that you can leverage your credibility. So as we look for leverage points like credibility in our industry, early on for us, it was like having brand sponsors in the industry that then maybe going to the next brand sponsor. It's like, hey, A, B, and C are sponsoring us in some way. Maybe it was product in the beginning.
Cool.
But then like, company D was like, oh, well, you're validated because you're working with these people. So then you get them to say yes at a higher level. And then you go back to these and then you say, hey, well, they're actually paying us to do this project over here.
Yes.
And then, it works, right? So, it also works with the different clients that you work with. So if you have a portfolio where, automotive space, like working with McLaren has really helped us get into the auto industry. It was a difficult one to get, but it's also like revered in the auto industry. So having that credibility to approach other brands in the auto industry, looking at more consumer level car brands, like they're like, okay, well, you're validated already, right? So you have that credibility. So I think like I also like to visually look at it as a staircase. So you're taking a step up over here, and that allows you to take a step up over here.
Cool. That's good.
And I think leverage can be created in an infinite number of ways. That really comes down to you as a brand or as a business, whatever it is. To whoever's listening to this, I can't say what's going to be valuable in the world that they're trying to build. But for us, a decade plus ago, we were thinking in all these different directions. We, for like a year, I think it was probably a decade ago, we were kids and we had this dream of like, what if we could give a TEDx talk? Somebody reached out to us to film a TEDx event. And we were like really close to saying yes. Then we sat on it and we're like, no, we want to speak at the TEDx event. Now they said no. So then, but that gave birth to a dream. Then we spent about a year trying to figure out how to give a TEDx talk. And we gave that. So let's say this over here is the dream client. Well, if you work with a different client that's in their industry, they're going to respect you. We run a podcast on the side that we don't do episodes very often. But again, we've had a lot of these long chases to reach for the pie in the sky. For like a year, we were hustling. How can we get Matthew McConaughey on the podcast? And that's another story. We could all break these all down, but like we finally made it happen after a year. Mm-hmm. So even sometimes we pitch brands that are like, it's like a car company, but we happen to leverage these unrelated things, but they're all leverage. They're all credibility.
That's cool. I like that. So since we've established a bit of like a mafia theme with make them an offer we can refuse, do you have like, how do you keep track of your like hit list, right? If we're going to stay in that genre. So what does that look like for you guys?
Love it.
Well, I would say, and this is like, I think a good takeaway.
Sure.
So anybody, you have to come up with, hit list is a great word. That's the word we use for it. So it's a list of, and I would say
we literally spoke to a Bible college like a couple of days ago, and
amazing.
we encouraged these Bible college students to create hit lists.
Wonderful.
That term.
Yes. Clarified though,
Yeah.
You have to know where you're trying to go.
Cool.
Right? If you're aimless, I don't know what industry I want to work with. I don't know the services my company provides. And it's just wishy-washy. I mean, this comes down to, we were talking before about branding. Like you have to kind of like package up what you're offering. But creating a hit list, it's as simple as like, let's just say with brands, create a list. Who are the dream brands you want to work with? Some are going to be ridiculous and you have no chance right now of getting that. Put it on the list though, because you need to know where you want to go. You need to know like what really excites you, and then kind of keep making that list. They'll get a little bit more reasonable, right? The more you have on the list, and keep approaching those. But I think like defining that is so important. Because if you don't have, another saying, if you don't have the target, like you're gonna miss every single time you take a shot.
And there's something there, because the hit list, all of these things are works in progress, right? So the people watching this, I'm not saying, okay, get out your pen and you're gonna have the map of exactly what your 5-year plan is and you figure it out as you go, but you have to start somewhere. So where do you start? I think you really have to pay attention to one thing, to look at it like, what are your values? Maybe there's people, brands, organizations, whatever out there who you have that in common. We believe we have a shared mission. On that basis, that's a better reach out than some random brand, company, organization that you have nothing in common. Okay, values. That's a core thing. Who do you look up to? Who inspires you? In your world, color, right? So automatically, there's something you have in common. You work as a colorist. There's colorists of movies, music videos, whatever. I ask people all the time, like, who do you look up to? And most people, they kind of scratch their head. I don't, we live in this autopilot where we consume, but we don't really step aside and say, who are the people who are influencing me and why? So we're always adding to that list of the hit list, people we just resonate with. And to be honest, some of our favorite work collaborations has come from, there's a person that we look up to them. We feel like we speak the same language, even if we're doing totally different things. And we just said, we should do whatever it takes to meet that person. And then years later, some collaboration comes because you speak the same language, So yeah, identifying who you look up to, make that hit list, right?
Yeah.
And then take a baby step. Maybe you're not going to be meeting with Steven Spielberg, but maybe in your city, is there somebody who's a colorist? Is there an editor? Somebody who is a little bit closer to what you ideally want to do? Maybe they'd grab coffee or jump on Zoom with you.
I love that. I'm reminded of the book Steal Like an Artist.
Love it.
It's just a great simple book.
Yeah.
And
it's like the little square book.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah. It's so
brilliant.
great. And one of the points he makes in it is, as artists, we try to develop our tastes. And one of the ways we can develop our tastes is to save what we love, right? And I suppose maybe an element of that is we're kind of taking that idea to people and projects. So, can we kind of pull together, these are the things that I love doing, these are the values that I have, the people I want to work with. So just I might have a dream project, I might have dream people that I want to work with as well,
100%.
which is cool.
Yeah.
The next step in this is a lot of times artists feel, the imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
They
sure.
feel intimidated by
Us
making
too.
this. Yes, I
Us
know, right?
too. Yeah.
Everyone, the more successful you get, the more you're like, oh no, I've earned so much that I can look silly, right, if I fail. A lot of times artists don't like this feeling of being salespeople. They don't want to feel like, that feels very corporate. It feels like lying. See, sometimes people associate these things with the term sales. So if that's how someone's feeling, they're hearing this and they're thinking, man, that just doesn't feel natural for me. I don't feel like I am in sales.
Yeah.
How might that mindset be holding them back?
One thing that I like to kind of point out is if you are loving what you're doing or you're really passionate about it, it creates an easier pathway for you to then talk about it and share it. So I like to think back to even like early days when we would go to networking events, and I have two stark different experiences. One where I'm at a networking event and I'm not working on a project. And then another where I do have a project I'm passionate about. Okay, so the first, I go to a networking event and I'm not working on anything really exciting right now. I'm sitting at a table feeling really awkward. When I meet someone, I don't know what to talk about. Hey, what do you do? Well, I do this, right? And they then are passionate probably about what they're doing, and they just share what they're doing.
And they probably forget about you because you were talking about the weather, and they're like, well,
exactly,
I have things to do.
because I am passionate about weather.
Right.
So
You actually are,
I generally kind of bring the conversation back to, it's a sunny day out, right? Do you like that?
Absolutely. It's beautiful.
We have a storm coming later.
Yeah.
But, I think I saw that. And then I saw where I was like, man, I don't want that experience again when I'm not passionate about something and I don't have something to share. And then I had the opposite where I was working on something kind of impossible to pull off, but really excited about it. When you make that connection, you're excited to share. You're excited to talk. And I think equally, you have to be very curious about others. And that helps make a connection. You have to, what are you working on, Barrett? Like, what are you excited about today? And then you need to start to connect those dots.
Yeah. Here's the deal. I think a lot of people listening, they might rewind back to a time, middle school, high school, and the assignment was to give a speech to the class. Like most people's worst fear, or like top of the list. So some people listening might remember a time that they had to give some speech about some book they didn't care about, and it was like the most nerve-wracking thing, and they also didn't care. But maybe they can remember a moment where there was something they did care about. Tell us about a sport that you love, or your family, or whatever, and they cared about it, or a mission you're really passionate about. There's probably a little bit more pep in their step when it was something they cared about. So that's the value of purpose. I think we're created to live with purpose.
Absolutely.
And even like we're Christians, we're believers. It's like God is the ultimate storyteller. We're living a story, whether we like it or not. So when you are on a mission, the beauty of that mission, whether or not you have it all figured out, because the secret is most of us don't. When you're on a mission, you invite other people on that mission. Suddenly people are going to want to hear what you have to say, because what you're saying, it sounds a whole lot better than the weather. Sorry,
Cody.
Weather is cool. Weather is cool. It's exciting.
Yeah, we love the weather. So I think there's value. And also with imposter syndrome, at least this is a reminder to myself, more and more, I'm almost seeing imposter syndrome as a healthy sign. That means it's like alert, alert. But what if that means like growth? because it means we're challenging ourselves. When I feel imposter syndrome or I feel overwhelmed, stressed, anxiety, I also try to take note of like, okay, these things are present. Anxiety is here, stress, maybe imposter syndrome. Yeah. What's not present? I'm not depressed. I don't lack purpose. Okay, maybe this is a positive thing if framed in the right way to say, we're pressing on a new thing. So if you're feeling imposter syndrome, keep going.
Yeah, that's cool. I think one of the kind of frameworks that's helped me a little bit, especially because sales, I feel like it feels, very corporate, is just when I look at marketing to think of what problem am I solving and trying to find people who have the problems. And when I think of it that way, it's less intimidating to talk to people going like, hey, do you have this problem? No, you don't? Okay, guess we're not the right fit, right? Just trying to find the people who have the problem that you can help. It can be helpful.
Not force it too.
Yes, yeah, you don't have to force it.
Yeah, I mean, even earlier when we're talking about like landing clients, like can't force it.
Yeah.
It has to be a natural fit. And I think that's a great point to bring up because the more, and the other thing the note you just said of like that you're actually helping those that need what you have.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful fit.
I think a healthy way of how to view yourself is you're a problem solver. That you're a professional problem solver.
When you're looking at that bigger client, that bigger pitch, and you're putting that together, what are some ways that you kind of approach that knowing that it's maybe a bigger opportunity? So how do you go about approaching that?
I mean, I think definitely doing your research. Like doing your research is invaluable. Understanding who you're talking to is really important. So literally to the specific individual you're pitching at the company, to understanding what's going on with that company right now. So I kind of mentioned this earlier, but consuming all the content that they have out right now, looking at press releases, looking at any news that's come out about the company, understanding what's going on in the current economy right now, where are things headed. These are all problems and opportunities.
So as someone who is more on the introverted side, right? I think about this a lot. And something that I found helpful is having a couple like questions in my back pocket. When I'm going into that networking space, when I'm going to that meeting, a couple questions. Are there questions that come to mind for you guys that are like, this should just be on people's minds? Good questions to ask in those spaces.
I love this. I think I know what he's going to say. Kody, okay. Go for it. Are you going to say something?
It's not that brilliant that I have in my mind. What do you?
Well, it doesn't need to be brilliant.
I just feel like both of us at like a networking thing, like we'll say this when in doubt. It's just like,
all right, we'll see if this matches up.
What are you most excited
about?
Okay,
that's
okay, great.
Yeah, all right,
that's a great question.
I was like, it's not that great of a question.
That is a great question. But I think
it is because I hope it pulls something out, and that's what I'm. Because even if I'm nervous to like go in and I don't really want to talk about myself, it's so much like people in general. People do like talking about themselves more than hearing.
Totally.
So it's such a good muscle to grow of like pulling something out of others, and then you get to add to it. So it's like, what are you most excited about? And then I could add to it if there's overlap.
Let's say, kind of pivoting back to the pitching project side of things, right? Let's say you pitch the project. Statistically, it's not a yes right away.
Yeah.
What are some examples of easy ways to follow up with people, just to kind of stay on their mind?
One way of following up is updating them on the things that you're working on. 3 months go by. Hey, we just did this project. You guys came to mind. You could be updating them on what you're doing. I feel like oftentimes we're updating clients that at least they get back to us. Sometimes you have to if you're having a hard day, you have to give yourself a pat on the back and say, at least these guys get back to me. At least I have their ear. And that can potentially be converted over time. So sometimes we update people with the things that we've been doing. I feel like too, sometimes we're trying to create this group hug where we're saying, hey, we just did this collaboration with this brand or that brand. Maybe in the future, we could get you some product placement in a commercial that we're doing. Or maybe, we could use your microphones on the behind the scenes of, this kind of shoot.
The other thing I'll say is don't forget old leads that you have. That's something that can really happen. You get like a year or two past having a conversation with someone where there was like good email correspondence or meetings that you had, and you just totally forget and you let that go away. So for instance, if you are trying to pursue a client and they're not getting back, maybe use that as a time to look back at old correspondence and go like, oh, wait, these other people did want to do something, but it was the wrong time at that point. Let's bring them back up at that point.
Another thing that comes to mind while you're talking is I think, people really need to, there's an art to, this sounds like it's like spiritual thing. Like I wanted to say like open your mind, expand your mind, like just look at different angles. Cause I'll give a very practical example of a perceived closed door and then that door opening over time. So there was a musician that I wanted to get on my podcast. I just think his stuff is great. I'm a huge fan. I wanted to get him on my podcast, and we reached out and we pitched him, and he politely said no. I followed up and politely no. And then I followed up, and the manager said, okay, no. So I figured I followed up 3 times. I figured if I follow up a 4th and a 5th, the answer is probably no. I don't think if I reach out an 8th time, the answer suddenly becomes yes. But Kody and I, a few months ago, we did a music video. And we're like, that was like the time of our life. We'd love to do more of these things. And then I was thinking, and I was like, this musician, he's coming out with an album in like just under 2 months. Hey, manager, by the way, we just did this music video. You guys need a music video by chance? Gets right back. Yeah, actually, we do. How about we talk?
I love it.
And then we're talking with that guy. So it's like sometimes there's a no over here, but it's like, is there a different way to bring a collaboration to life, even if it's in a different way than you initially pitched? But again, that comes down to finding value. What does this person need? Yeah. We reverse engineered it a little bit to say, there's an album, he must need a music video.
Well, and that comes down to the research. Like, research. That's like being aware of where they are at this current point in time, and maybe what you're offering isn't what they need.
Yeah, and I'm getting a real kick out of this idea. I say it to Kody sometimes, and he thinks it's very weird. It is a weird statement, but I'm just going to share this with you. You probably know where I'm going. Like, oh, no, this is weird. He's going to say this on camera. But this idea of like, okay, I'm going to give that example with this musician and keep following up. It's close. It's kind of like with a joke, when you keep saying the same thing over and over, friends will say, oh, you're beating a dead horse, right? Beating a dead horse. So the theory in a business world is there a way to hypothetically resurrect
Great.
a dead horse?
Wonderful. Yeah.
So the art of resurrecting a dead horse, chances are it's not going to be by going back to that a 10th and 11th time. Maybe there's a new thing that you could come at it for the first time. Totally different offering, bringing value that's really specialized to what this person needs right now. And who knows, maybe 1 for 1, you'll get a yes. Mm-hmm. The art of resurrecting a dead horse, ladies and gentlemen, is something I'm
wonderful. We'll take that out of context
and
just put it somewhere.
Blackmail me.
And some other description to it.
Yeah, that's great. So let's say that someone's listening to this and they feel like they were not given the natural instinct of building those relationships, following up on a plan. How would you kind of give them a structure to work with? If they were trying to step down this path, give them some like things to start thinking about, things to create. It could even be referencing our conversation already.
I would say the simplest thing is it's such a good muscle to grow to keep talking about what you're doing. If you isolate and it's easy as an introvert to, isolate more and not get out to things. If you isolate, it just kind of creates more of a spiral of not integrating more. I think we've all had those experiences when we're with people that are creating things and more ideas just keep coming. More ideas, right? So I would say make one conscious effort to get around another group of creatives. It doesn't have to be people you're pitching and do the whole sales thing. Just figure out, it could be a friend that does a different type of art. Like, do a co-working space. My wife's an artist and she kind of, she works from home and by herself. Like her art is, doing it by herself, interfacing with clients. She runs a co-working space now. So she meets up with local artists and they're doing totally different things, but it's like you get to rub shoulders and new ideas come. So I think like find one group that you can rub shoulders with or one person.
Yeah, that's good. And do you, because like online communities are growing. Do you feel passionately about that being like an in-person thing you can go to, or like what's your thoughts about online spaces?
We do both. I think both can work. You got to figure out. Like I think either can serve the purpose. It has to be like how you feel. If online just isn't working for you, just find people in person.
Yeah. But I think the takeaway, it's like, look, like beggars can't be choosers. It's like if you're in a place where you're like, I'm stuck, nothing's going on for me, I'm reaching out to people, the answer is no, I don't even know who to reach out to. Like, start somewhere. There's online communities. There's probably, smarter business people than us who are, creating these courses. Mm-hmm. I know you create different courses and, teach different things. It's like, start somewhere. Yeah. I do think there's value in that, even if it's virtual, just the communication, proximity to other people who are also trying to figure it out. Something will come from that. That's better than nothing.
Yeah, that's good. And as I kind of think back on some of the things we've talked about, kind of helping people build that structure, I would think if you don't already have a hit list or people you look up to, like start with that. Yeah. Kind of ask what seems to be some of those spheres of influence that they agree with? Like, what are they looking for? What are their needs?
Yeah.
And then as that list grows, maybe focus on the more attainable ones first.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
That can be some structures there.
And then the community side, like, I think that's probably the broader thing of what I was trying to say is like, find a community to be a part of.
And back in the day, we were kids when we were doing this, but we had a group of other local entrepreneurs or guys kind of in our age group who wanted to start business. And we would meet once a week at Starbucks and we called it a think tank. We're just like, let's get together and talk about the things we're trying. And, we'll watch a TED Talk or something, and then we'll give each other a weekly challenge. So if you don't see the thing, chances are maybe there's one or two or three people you can think of that maybe they're doing different things in their own life. But if you send out an invite, say, would you guys be interested in getting together once a week or every other week? And we just talk about business or brainstorming. Would you be interested? You might be surprised. Like when we reached out to these guys, everybody was like, yes, I'm in. So
that's great. And what cadence was that? Was it weekly or?
We did it weekly, but there was like different times that we do it every other week. And I think having it on the calendar was super important. I think the thing is like life always comes up. So there were seasons that I was like, oh, can't meet. But having it on the calendar still brought so much value, because what I will say, even in busy seasons when we had to cancel sometimes, knowing we had this group was like really great. Like we might have been traveling for projects, but we would text and check in with the group. The beauty in it is there was no crossover in industry. So none of us were competing over the same jobs. But what was great is we could bring, like each week, I feel like we would each go around the table and talk about like, what are we trying to solve right now? Hey, we had a friend that had a window washing company. Like he would wash commercial windows, in the suburbs. And it was so fun for us to even get to put our hat on and go like, okay, this is different business, but I know a lot of things that could help what you're doing.
Cool.
So like, that was like fun to even break outside. And then what I was going to say is vulnerability on our side. Like if you're with people that are all pitching the same thing, like you're not going to be like, hey, I'm having trouble landing this client. But if you're with a group that you're all different, it's great to be vulnerable and be like, I just cannot get a gig going this week, right? So that was cool to be in a space that you didn't have to compete.
So I'd love to hear, has there ever been a pitch where you feel like we bombed that, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I'm so curious. I'm so curious what you're going to say.
We saw the light bulb go on.
Yeah.
How do I frame it to the public?
Who's watching this?
So okay, we're gonna do this one. So there was like a Fortune 500 company, and we were like doing work with them, right? With the marketing department. We had this phenomenal outside the box idea. We emailed the CEO, got his email through some correspondence. We shouldn't have had his email. We got his email. We got an email through to him. It was a great pitch.
It was good.
Then our contact said, would they say, you're going like, hey, you're not allowed to do that. You're going against the grain. You can't do this again. And it was like a big slap on the wrist. And at the time, very, very awkward. But then hindsight, like looking back now, I'm like, okay, to frame it, you have to know where the line is. Sure. And that was a good learning moment. Like we can't do that. But sometimes,
how do you find where the line is?
Thinking outside the box is the way to get through. We've seen that in our own lives when we get really, really creative. That's when doors open. Cool. And that's when we've had good feedback where people are like, listen, we don't say yes to these kinds of things, but you did this in a creative way, so yes.
How much do you feel like the visual side is part of that pitch compared to like the relational side?
A lot. It's hard. I wish I had a pie chart of like what exactly all goes into it. And maybe it's a little bit different because each pitch for us tends to be a little bit different. But again, you have to get in that mindset of thinking whoever you're pitching, chances are they're getting pitched by a bunch of people. It's almost like a dating app profile. It's like, how are you going to stand out? So it's like, visually, it's like anything you can do to cut through the clutter. We've made pitch videos in the past because it's like if somebody gets 10 emails in a day, chances are you have the only video they got that day. Maybe they'll watch it because we got a video. How can I wrap this in a way that's interesting? It's like if you're trying to get a hold of somebody who has millions of followers, the best way to get a hold of them is probably not sending them a DM because there's hundreds of other DMs. So what's the way?
You probably found this, like it's when you share a vision, just like verbally, often whoever's hearing that is not picturing what you're describing.
Right.
So the most effort you can put in to actually paint the picture, before you've created the project is really helpful. So I think like having a strong lookbook and
I can think of times we were in a boardroom meeting with people pitching something, talking. Maybe these guys are kind of zoning out a little bit, but then we're like, wait a second, can we just show you? Put like a demo reel or something on there, 30 seconds, boom. And it was like there was a shift in the room.
Something that I feel like has been illustrated to me recently is that packaging ideas mean so much.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times as artists, we enjoy getting deep into ideas where we enjoy working out like a shot list, or this is the type of shot that I want, composition, and just thinking about if someone's coming in with like the simplest and most understandable way that we can like package this idea that they can receive. I think that's been like a weakness of mine of wanting to get into too much detail in those pitches, keep it higher level. What is a question I should have asked you, but did not?
Oh man, we covered so much ground.
Ooh, what you should have asked us is
should have asked him about the weather.
What weather's coming up. Collectively, what is one of the most exciting moments of our lives? Collectively,
yes,
the three of us.
This is true. What is that, Kody?
So let me rewind. This is what year? 2017?
2017.
Yeah, that sounds right.
2017. We're on a film project for a client. Barrett's with us.
Yeah.
Barrett's with filming. We are doing this adventure commercial, basically.
Yep.
And we're doing cool things. We're hang gliding. We're rock climbing, out in Utah. Kyler and I were tasked with climbing this 450-foot spire in the desert to get this shot. And we were kind of moderate rock climbers at the time.
Barrett, you were like a super experienced rock climber at the time.
No,
right?
no, very minimal. Like probably like a YMCA once, maybe.
Right? YMCA once, or
I don't know, something along those lines.
Yeah. So anyway, we go into this project, and Barrett's running a camera at the time, and Kyler and I have to summit this spire. We're literally talking the spire that goes 450 feet up in the air.
They call it the pizza summit, or like
The summit, is literally
like a large pizza,
a large
like an
pizza.
XL pizza. Yeah.
So we had one of the most incredible moments of our lives. We both summited that.
Yeah.
We get down, and then Barrett over here goes, "Guys, can I try?"
Yeah.
And we're like, "Yeah, you should try." We're both kind of freaking out, like, this is insane. We got a YMCA one-timer over here.
Absolutely.
And
that's all the experience you need.
Barrett summits this thing, right?
Yes.
This is insane. So
that is the day you became my hero, by the way.
Oh, great.
Like ever since that day. But yeah, dude, that would be like deathbed. Like I'm gonna like tell that story, and you were there.
Yeah.
So and also I remember we took a photo of that. I think didn't it ended up in Forbes?
Oh yeah, Barrett's on
That's right.
Forbes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did
Barrett,
accidentally end up in Forbes.
This gentleman has been in Forbes. He's been
This is true.
standing on a peak.
Absolutely. Yeah. As long as someone else goes first, that's the really helpful.
Yeah,
thing.
that day will live in infamy.
Absolutely. Yes. Definitely one of the most proud and stupid things I'm sure I've ever done in
Same
life.
here.
Yeah.
One and done.
One and done. Yeah.
We're one and
Really
done
do it
on that.
once.
To tell the tale.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. It was great chatting with you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
man, it was awesome.
Yeah.